How's it going, YouTube? Coming to you today with another video, and today, guys, the video is going to be Runick K9, and I really do hope that you enjoyed today's video because this is such an interesting deck. This is something that I feel like has so much potential right now, and this is something that's very similar to like Runick for Hire, where it has some really good application and insane grind game, and we'll talk about why I think this is a very smart pick right now. Definitely go ahead and check my sponsors over on Gem, Cloud, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, RW, MainPhaze, and Grimoire down below in the description. Also, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already so we can hit our goal at 30,000. I appreciate each and every one of you, but let's hop right on into our first slide. The first thing I want to talk about today is going to be the Runick cards are going to be a lot better. We're not seeing as much Malice, which is insane, right? Because at that point, you can use the Runick cards without really having to care too much about what you run into. Now, if you run into Malice, will it be a little less optimal? It will, but you're still playing the K9 cards, right? And they still have cards like Backup, Wizard, Hare, so there's still going to be opportunities to go ahead and use your K9 cards. And I think that Malice is a really crazy matchup for sure. But especially if you go first, you can just make things like Paradise Smasher and then go ahead and just start ripping off all of your Runick spells, because whatever you banish, it doesn't matter, right? At that point, everything's just gone. So there's definitely a lot of ways that you can win this matchup. But you are playing a heavy engine into K9 as well, so you have a lot of ways to not just rely only on your Runick cards. There's also a lot of really important one-ups in the format right now, like Minion. Minion being gone is absolutely brutal for your yummy opponent, and when I was playing on high-rated DB for the last few days, hitting Minion off a banish is almost an auto scoop. When your opponent sees you have like 5 or 6 cards in hand and an established board, there's not a whole lot more that they can do when you banish their one-off Minion. So there's going to be a lot of situations where even your opponent's on like one Urgla, one Pan, right? And you just start banishing cards and all of a sudden those cards are gone and it gets a lot harder to play the game. So I think the Runick cards are a really good option right now, and they're really underexplored because people are so worried about things like Detonator and the Malice cards, but with them being less popular, we have a really good opportunity to play these cards again. There's a really crazy Suya Line that I've shown in the previous video, but if you're unaware of this, you can go GGYGO plus a 5, which ideally is going to be Azuna, and then you'll go Azuna dump Lupus, GGYGO add Lantern, Lantern summon back the Lupus, Lantern add Case, and this way, if you case for Azuna, you link all 4 off into Skuldred, and if they Ash you or Valor you, you can still use the Azuna in hand and the Lupus in grave because you haven't used them yet. So either your Skuldred resolves, you fix your hand, you have all your Runick cards online, or you're able to go ahead and get Valor or Ash and then make like Ripper, right? So that's really cool because it also doesn't take your normal summon. So let's say that you make Saryuya, and then your opponent goes Ash. You go activate Azuna, Azuna summon itself, and then you go your Lupus to summon, make Ripper. Ripper, add the new card, Noroi. You can then go normal summon Noroi, summon something out of deck, and your board just gets a lot larger because you have another way to just play the game, right? So you can make like a Nash Knight, you can make a Valon, you can do whatever it is that you want to do at that moment. If you have another 5 available, potentially you can go for a Paradise Smasher at that point. So you also have the line for Saryuya, where Saryuya can then also summon out of your hand, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of different ways you can go ahead and utilize this to your advantage. Shoutouts to Raminator in the Discord. This is a very cool card that I completely forgot about, but Mamorphosis. This card allowed for you to tribute your Hugin and then summon out of deck and then continue playing the game and get into your For Hire combo, which is really cool. But now you can use Mamorphosis and summon out Jokel, Jokel add Noroi, normal summon Noroi, Noroi summon 1, and then if you really wanted to, just make your Paradise Smasher, right? So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do in this deck, and I know everyone's just like, cool, right? Because Paradise Smasher is just like the bane of everyone's existence right now, but I don't know, I think this is pretty based. Also, Frecky just being a 5 is pretty crazy, because if you're in a bad spot, you can just go E-Telly out Frecky, summon a 5, make Ripper, search, right? Like, it's so good. So that's something else to also think about here. A pretty insane card that you should be running right now is Retaliating Sea. This card really does a lot of work into Yummy, and it does a ton of work into Dragon Tail. I like this card a lot right now. I think that it's a 3-of in your sideboard. You should be playing Retaliating Sea. This card is very, very strong. If you're playing a deck with a lot of flex spots, you definitely should consider playing the Mega Fleet, whether you're siding it or it's in your extra deck. The K9 Crystron deck is very popular right now, and you should have an answer to it. One of the greatest answers we have in the game right now is Mega Fleet. being able to use your opponent's SP and their Infinity and then attempt to swing over Ripper, forcing them to use their X-Force is really insane, and it just trades for so much without you even having to use a card out of your hand. So, very cool, and it's a card that you should be running. So here's the deck list, and I'll leave it down below in the description as well. But this is really insane just for what it is, because you have so much grind and so much that you can do in this deck. So the Runick engine is 20 cards in the main deck, which is fine, because this is effectively just your non-engine, right? So the Runick cards function as non-engine and engine, which is kind of cool. So that's something where it is half the deck because it is a big part of the deck, but it also helps you fix hands, get more cards, get more things in rotation. It's really nice to have. But we also have our K9 cards, which is going to be about 13 cards here. We have the playset of Azuna, the Jokels, the Noroi, the one Lantern, the one Lupus, the X-Force, and the Case. These are all very important, just so you have them all for the engine, especially the Force, just because in this deck I feel like it's even better, just because you don't have a battle phase most times, so you want to make sure that when you do, it's the most optimal it is, and when you don't, you have enough interruptions to stop your opponent. Mamorphosis is just an option to draw, so it is just a one-of in the deck, but it's a very strong one-of at that. Then just playing the Charmies because they are the Charmies, and one of the standard ratios we've seen is just 3-1, and I think that's perfectly fine for this deck. I am siding the Mega Fleet, I'm siding the Gravekeeper's Inscription. Now, I think this card is also something that you should really pay attention to. This card is very strong. This is a card that tells your opponent they can't do one of three things. And let's read it together. So, at the start of your main phase 1, neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard, or neither player can banish cards from the graveyard, or neither player can special monsters from the graveyard. So against Yummy, you're just saying you can't summon from the grave, period. You can't summon from the grave for 2 turns, which is just lethal, right? It's something where you just go win button, right? And they just can't play the game. Then you can activate neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard against Dragontail, and then you also stare your opponent like, wow, you can't play the game. Crazy. So, very strong card in those two matchups, and it's something that you should definitely consider. Most Runick list main deck evenly matched, but I'm playing a whole nother engine, and I feel like it's strong enough to warrant to not play the evenly, but I'm definitely siding it. Very strong card right now. I believe that you should be on evenly. I think that card's crazy. It's something that you should be running. But that's something that I will be siding. And then Ogre, because Ogre is Ogre, and it hits just so much in the format right now. The extra deck is pretty standard. We're playing the new K9 as well, which is pretty cool. The additional removal is definitely helpful. And I feel like Werewolf in this deck too is just so valued, because at that point, that card is going to just be such an interruption on your opponent, especially if you summon it on your own turn. So it's a very good card. But Noroi, I feel like, just makes everything so much easier. Just an Ice Raziel for the deck, where that's, like, effectively your normal summon, right? Like, you're just normaling a lot of the K9 cards to start your combo, whether it's a Jokel or a Noroi. So, something else to really think about here, too, because you don't really need your normal summon. So, if you want to side into things like Border or whatever, if you want to, then you could. But I'm also playing the 3 Floodgates on the side because they're all good for their own reasons. You could main deck, like, one of them, but just in testing, playing just too many of them just bricked my hands more than not. And then if you have, like, Rivalry in your deck and you play against things like Yummy, right, it just feels terrible. So just something else to keep in mind. But I feel like the deck itself is really solid. While we're already talking about different things that you can do with the K9 cards, there's a couple variants that I want to talk about and things that you can do with the K9 cards that I think are worth noting because they're pretty cool. One of the things is being able to use Jokel to summon any other 5 out of your hand, one being Spell Canceller. And decks like Yummy, where they rely so hard on spells, having a card like Spell Canceller when it's really easy to get to Jokel, especially if you have a Noroi, someone Lantern, grab Case, grab Jokel, right? There's a lot that you can do. So having a Spell Canceller in your hand, let alone you do the Suya Line and you draw it, then you can just summon it off the Suya. There are a lot of things that can go very wrong for your opponent. If we ever see a K9 Thunder variant, I think that it's very worth noting that you can go Jokel summon Dragon Dark, and then you can just, like, link off Dragon Dark, right? And then get a free search after you search from Jokel to get, like, Lantern. So there's a lot that you can do in this deck, but it's pretty cool, and it's another way that you can play the game. And the last one is everyone's favorite FTK card, Catapult Turtle. So this is something that we could potentially see, because once you search it, right, that's something that you can just, like, summon out of hand for free. So I'm definitely interested to see if any of this ends up becoming something in the game, but it would be very interesting to see if it does. If you haven't already checked out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Instagram, or subscribed to the YouTube channel, definitely go ahead and do so. And let me know what you think about the deck down below in the description. I'm very excited for this deck, this format. I think that it's going to be very solid. Have a great day, and thank you.